What if a poem could threaten a government? No guns, no violence, just words. Words are so powerful. They got a man imprisoned, words that people still chant on the streets today. And behind those words was one name, Faiz Ahmed Faiz. We usually think poetry is soft, romantic, safe, something you read quietly and forget. But Faiz changed that forever. He turned poetry into resistance, into rebellion, into a voice for millions who had none. But here's what made him truly dangerous. He didn't shout. He didn't attack. He wrote about love, and somehow that love became a revolution. So how did one poet challenge oppression, injustice, and authoritarian power without ever picking up a weapon? And why are his words still echoing in protest today? Let's dive in. Where it all began. Faiz wasn't born into rebellion. He was educated, soft-spoken, a lover of literature. But he lived in a time of chaos. British colonial rule, then independence, then political instability. And in the middle of all this, he saw something dangerous: silence. People were suffering, but they weren't speaking. And Faiz realized, if no one speaks, nothing changes. So he made a choice. Not a loud one, but a powerful one. He picked up a pen. When poetry became a crime. Here's where things take a turn. Faiz didn't just write about beauty, he wrote about truth. And truth makes power uncomfortable. He became associated with progressive thinkers and movements that challenged inequality and injustice. Eventually, he was accused in what became known as the Rawalpindi conspiracy case. And just like that, a poet became a prisoner. Think about that. Not a criminal, not a soldier, a poet locked away because his ideas were dangerous. But here's the twist. Prison didn't silence him. It transformed him. Behind bars, he wrote some of his most powerful work, poetry filled with pain, but also unbreakable hope. And that's where he discovered something most people never do. You don't need freedom to create freedom. Love disguised as revolution. Now here's Faiz's genius. He didn't write slogans, he wrote poetry. At first glance, his words feel romantic, soft, emotional, but look deeper, and everything changes. Take his famous poem, Bolkelab Azad Hain Tere. On the surface, it's simple. Speak, because your lips are free. But underneath, it's a direct challenge to oppression, a call to rise, to resist, to refuse silence, and then there's Hum de Kenge, a poem that feels calm, almost poetic, but it carries a powerful promise that tyrants will fall, that justice will rise, that the people will win. Faiz didn't just write poetry, he hid revolution inside beauty, and that made his words unstoppable. The people found their voice. Something incredible started happening. People didn't just read Faiz, they felt him. Workers, students, activists. They saw their struggles in his lines, because Faiz wasn't writing for elites. He was writing for the streets, for the oppressed, for the unheard. And soon, his poetry left books and entered real life. It was chanted in protests, sung in gatherings, whispered in resistance. Imagine that. Poetry becoming protest. Lines becoming courage. Words becoming power. But wait, if his poetry was so powerful, why didn't it immediately change the system? Why didn't oppression just disappear? Because Faiz understood something deeper. Revolutions don't start with action. They start with awareness, and awareness starts with words. Exile, censorship, and a global voice. Standing against power always comes at a cost, and Faiz paid it fully. After prison, there was surveillance, censorship, and eventually, exile. He was forced away from his homeland. But here's the irony. The more they tried to silence him, the louder he became. His poetry crossed borders, from Pakistan to India to the world, different languages, different cultures, same message: resist injustice. because oppression isn't limited to one place, and neither is hope. And just when authorities thought his voice would fade away, it did something unexpected. It multiplied. A legacy that refuses to die decades later. Faiz is still everywhere. His poetry appears in student movements, in protests, in songs. Even today, when people stand against injustice, they turn to his words. Why? Because nothing he wrote feels outdated. Inequality still exists. Oppression still exists. Silence still exists. And so, his poetry still matters. Here's the deeper truth most people miss. Faiz didn't just fight oppression. He changed how resistance looks. He proved you don't always need anger to resist. Sometimes, resistance looks like hope, like patience, like belief in a better future. He didn't teach people to destroy. He taught them to endure and rise. And that's more powerful, because systems can crush force, but they struggle against ideas. So what made Faiz truly dangerous? It wasn't weapons. It wasn't violence. It was hope wrapped in poetry. Because once people believe change is possible, you can't control them anymore. Faiz gave people that belief. He turned art into resistance, words into courage, poetry into a movement, and he proved one unforgettable truth. You don't need power to challenge power. You just need a voice. So next time you read a poem, don't just read it, feel it, question it, because hidden inside those lines might be a revolution. If you found this story powerful, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Can art really change the world, or does it only inspire? And if you want more stories like this, stories where words shake systems, stay tuned, because sometimes the quietest voice becomes the loudest revolution.